Hey guys, and welcome to Ozzie Reviews, and welcome to October Q&A. Now guys, there's been a lot going on this month. Now for those of you who are new to the channel, please understand that this Q&A series is a series that I offer to those of you who support me, okay? So if you support me via PayPal just with a simple donation, or you actually support me on Patreon with, a monthly donation from as little as $1 a month, then obviously you get to ask different questions that I'll answer at the end of each month. Or obviously if you just want to ask questions and you don't want it read out, that's fine. I'll just answer your questions anyway if you're a supporter. So guys, why I've had to do that is simply because I can't possibly respond to all the questions that I get every day. There's just so many questions and I have to limit it somehow. And this is a way for you guys to help me out in return for the help that I give you. So I hope you do understand the system and how this actually works. So let's get straight into this month's questions. Now the first question I've got is a wrap up of numerous people who have asked me this, basically what the hell has gone on in October at Ozzie Reviews. We've had a lot going on, guys. I've had basically the clearance there 5 years on from being diagnosed with melanoma cancer. So, that's some great news for me. Then we had the negativity with the media. Look, it's just business as usual for me. It makes absolutely no difference to me, guys. But the big thing that has made a difference to me is my boy, Cooper, my dog. He's been diagnosed with cancer, and at this stage, it's still up in the air with just how bad that is, because I've got to get some more scans and stuff like that done. So I'm going to be pretty busy, doing that obviously because, I love him to bits and, he means the world to me. So his health is an absolute priority for me. So yeah, guys, we've had a lot going on. We've got a lot of equipment to look at this month. So you should see the review coming out for the PARD night vision optic. So we're doing that. We've got the CZ457 coming out as well. There's a couple of new comparison videos, beginner videos. We've got a lot planned, so stay tuned because November's going to be a pretty big month there for the reviews. Okay, so we'll start off with the next question we've got here, and that's from Anthony. He says, "Hi Ozzie, I appreciate your time and the good advice and content you offer. Do you shoot with two eyes open?" Well, no, I don't, mate. The only time I shoot with two eyes open is if I'm using a red dot. Okay, so like the aim point red dots that I use, then yeah, I will use both eyes open at the time. And the reason for that is because obviously that's what it's designed for. And obviously if you've got that other non-dominant eye open, well, it gives you more situational awareness where you can look around, when you're hunting. So yeah, if I'm using a normal scope, then naturally, I'll close my non-dominant eye. Now, I've got another question here. You've said that you've got a Ruger American in 223 based off my review, and you're looking at the new Zerotech scopes and what my thoughts are on them. Well, mate, look, a lot of people have asked me. I've had about 8 to 10 people ask me now what my thoughts are on these scopes. I don't know. I mean, I've not actually looked at one yet. However, they're saying Australian design, but I can't see them being made here. From my understanding, they'll be made in the Philippines or China. And a lot of people know what my thoughts are on scopes made in China or the Philippines. Personally, I just don't like them. Okay, I'm not saying all of them are rubbish. I just don't like them. I like something with a little bit better quality. So for me personally, I just steer clear of scopes made in those areas. So, mate, honestly, as I had in that Ruger American 223 review, I just had a cheap Leupold, like when I say cheap, like one of their entry-level models, and look at the results I got. So I really can't go past Leupold for a good base brand, when looking at optics. Next question I got here is from Gary, and he says, "Hi Ozzie, thanks for your time as always, mate. Looking at getting a 12 gauge and I've been looking at the straight pulls. I'm a left-handed shooter generally, so always assumed a left-handed bolt would be best on the straight pull. The bloke at my local gun shop reckons the opposite. I should cycle the bolt with my right hand while keeping my left hand on the pistol grip. If you were using a straight pull, what side would you prefer the bolt on the gun? His argument was that the dominant hand stays on the grip near the trigger at all times while cycling the bolt with the other hand. Thanks again, Gary. Matey, he's right. If you had a look at like my Warwick Arms review that I did, same sort of thing, I had, obviously because I'm right-handed, so I had my right hand on the pistol grip there, and with my left hand, I just move it from the forend back to the bolt, pull it back, let it go. So yeah, he's exactly right. At the end of the day, what it really comes down to though, if you don't feel comfortable doing that and you actually shoot better by doing it the other way, mate, you go with what feels comfortable with, what you like and ultimately how you shoot. So if you seem to perform better by doing it one way over another, then just do it that way, okay? Really, there's no right or wrong. However, I am saying that the guy is giving you the right advice there because generally it is your non-dominant hand that's going to cycle that bolt. Next question I got here is from Bernie. He says, "Hi Ozzie, I'm always interested in what's new on the market and the reviews of how they perform. The second-hand market can be quite overwhelming when you see the available rifles on the rack at the gun shop. Can you help out on what to look for when buying a used rifle? Condition is not always perfect, so maybe how to tell with areas to look for corrosion. What worn rifling looks like compared to a fresh barrel perhaps. Maybe other things like actions and triggers which could affect performance. Thanks, Bernie." Well, mate, look, there's a few things that I'd look for. You've got to remember that not all second-hand rifles obviously are going to work really well, because a lot of people who have a rifle and it doesn't perform well will pretty much get rid of it as quickly as possible. So that's what I'm always cautious of when I'm looking at a second-hand rifle. Couple of things. I mean, look, if you're just looking at a bolt action, you just want to look for a few things. So for me, obviously you're going to look down the bore of that rifle, okay? So down in the bore of the barrel there, do you see any pitting? Okay, now what I mean by pitting is think of like almost like a crater in that metal where rust has eaten in, to the internal part of the actual rifling or the bore in general. So that's something that I'll look for. A lot of people will have that in a shotgun. If you look down a shotgun, because usually there's no rifling unless it's an actual barrel or a rifle barrel made specifically for shooting slugs. But generally you look down the smooth bore of a shotgun and you can see that pitting starting to form on a lot of shotguns, because a lot of people find it very difficult to clean all of the residue off, after use there. So the same sort of thing when you've got a rifle barrel just on a normal rifle. Make sure there's no obvious pitting on it, okay? If there is, there could be a problem there with your accuracy. The other thing you want to be well aware of is the actual throat erosion, okay? Now what I mean by throat erosion, have a look at the actual how the chamber of the barrel works, and you'll see the area there where they talk about the throat. And what usually happens, the more rounds you put through, a rifle, the throat will start to erode. Now there's a couple of different tools that you can actually get. If you have a look at brownells.com in the States, they've got a couple of different throat erosion tools that you can use, and you can actually test and see, how bad that throat erosion is on that particular rifle. One thing you've got to be aware of too is obviously the caliber. If you've got a really old rifle there, and it's a pretty high speed caliber, and what I mean by a high speed caliber is something like 22 to 50, even the 1.7 Remington. I mean, they're an absolute screamer of a caliber. If you've got calibers that are moving very, very quickly and pushing that pill really quickly, okay, obviously the barrel's going to wear out a lot quicker than a slower moving projectile from a slower cartridge, so to speak. So that's something else that I'd take into consideration too. Obviously you want to know how many rounds are being put through it when you're looking at a lot of those calibers that are pushing the pills really quickly. General condition, I mean, you want to make sure you can dry fire it. Get a snap cap. Ask the gun shop if you can just put a couple of snap caps through it. Make sure it ejects correctly and there's no problems there with any sort of feeding, because that's going to really be the second major issue that you'd probably have. You know, a lot of the times those things are a quick fix. You can get stuff like you know, a new extractor or whatever. You know, you can fix those sort of things up, but you just want to make sure when you're buying the rifle that it functions flawlessly for you. So put some snap caps through it. That's the other thing that I like doing as well. Other than that, mate, look, you could go into this pretty much all night long with all the nitty gritty on what to look for, but that's pretty much it, okay? The big thing is the pitting in the barrel, if there's any inconsistencies in the rifling, and then obviously making sure that it functions perfectly. You know, you can load around from the chamber there, it ejects perfectly, and then, you know, from there, you're always going to be taking a risk buying a second-hand rifle, but that's the risk you take. Next question I got here is from Gav, and first of all, he has a he has a bit of a vent session here, so I'll read this out to you. He says, "Hi Ozzie. Firstly, just wanted to say I'm sorry to see the exposure mudslinging piece of crap from the leftist media machine. I was so peeved off. I'm going to increase my Patreon support amount so you can do more." You guys out in the world who aren't on board, extract your digit and ask yourself where you get your information on the Australian gun scene from. If you've stopped buying a magazine, you now have an extra $10 per month to give to whoever is making a difference to your monthly information and entertainment, and put your hard-earned cash there. Secondly, so very glad to see the news that you have 5 years clear of melanoma. I am too, mate, that's for sure. Insidious stuff and treatment isn't fun, and illness in itself ain't a night out at the pub either. All the best for your actual future. Mate, thanks, I really appreciate that. So we'll get on to your question now, which is talking about ammunition. So you've said here, ammo has been an issue for shooters in Australia for some time now, and even in the USA. There's more guns and more calibres out there. More people shooting than ever before in both countries. Do you think it'd be a good idea, say with second and third tier ammo calibres that get limited production runs from major manufacturers at limited times of the year, to actually stop making those limited amounts of the calibres and move the demand for that ammo down to second and third tier manufacturers, and let calibres with highest demand, so existing and new calibres needing to build a base, even for reloading, as well as shelf ammo, take precedent in their schedule for the year. Cheers, and once again, all the best, Gav. So basically what Gav's asking here is, you know, to keep up ammo supply, do I think that, you know, the most common calibres should be made over that of, you know, the calibres that don't get used as much? Now, it's an interesting one because, you know, usually you find like calibres that don't get used a lot, most people will reload for it anyway. Like, you know, for example, I don't know anyone who goes and buys factory ammunition for their 264 Win Mag. You know, there's a calibre you don't see a lot of here in Australia. And there's several different calibres like that that you just don't see here. And you just don't see people buying factory ammo for it. You know, they'll get the shells for it, then they just reload and everything, because usually the factory ammo is just so expensive because, like Gav says, you know, it is a limited run. So yeah, look, I think it could benefit, but you'd really have to be fair and make sure that I guess you would analyze the actual purchasing data to see how much of the different calibers is being sold, and then, you know, maybe do it that way. I mean, the only other way to do it is if they're getting low on stock, you know, or they can't get enough of it out there, then buy some more machines. That would be my advice to the manufacturers there. I mean, if the demand is there, we'll supply it. Next question I got here is from Jack, and he says, "Hey Ozzie, love the videos as a new shooter. Sold 2 Lithgos in my household alone just because of your review. 2 quick questions. The first, I'm looking for a new rabbit and fox gun, but I don't really want something in 22 LR. A little more speed or punch down range would be better for those longer shots. Any recommendations would be greatly appreciated." Okay, so let's answer the first question first. Mate, I love the 22 Magnum personally. I know there's guys out there absolutely love the 1.7 HMR. The 1.7 Winchester Super Mag, you know, I was really intrigued by that caliber because for a rimfire, it really is the king of rimfires in the sense of actual, you know, performance, like ballistics. Very, very impressive. But the problem is I just could not find one, and I've tried a couple now, that seem to be consistent with like a 5-shot group. There's always like 4 really good shots and then there's a flyer. You know, for me, it just really turned me off. And I know of a couple of friends of mine who have got 1.7 WSMs and they feel the same. So I probably wouldn't recommend going that way. 1.7 HMR, yes, very flat shooting, but you are limited to those lighter pills, okay? So you're only looking around that, you know, 17 to 20 grain. So for me, it's just that little bit too light. And that's why I like the 22 Magnum, because you can go from basically, you know, 25 grain right up to 50 grain, you know. So depending on what you're doing, I mean, like 50 grain jacketed hollow points there from Federal, fantastic. You know, they have some great downrange performance and retain energy at those longer distances as well. Or you can drop down to like the 30 grain VMAX. I believe the TNT round or equivalent there from Hornby is about that 25, somewhere there. It's an odd weight. So, you know, you've got a few different options there, but that's why I like the 22 Magnum. Plus, the big thing that I love about a 22 caliber in general is when you're actually sighting it in or just, you know, shooting and having a bit of fun, you can see those holes in the target. You know, with the 1.7, like you're really straining to see it. And the other thing that I don't like about 1.7 is, you know, I've had a couple of them now, like even 1.7 HMR and the 1.7 Winchester Super Mag, is the amount of cleaning rods that I've bent, you know, just cleaning those damn calibers, like, because it's just so thin. So for me personally, that just turned me off, and I absolutely love the 22 Magnum. So your next question here is, you're thinking about a bit of a brush gun for the Big Pigs, New South Wales, and wondering whether the 30-30 would fit the bill. You've said here that you keep getting told it's super inaccurate, even at distances 100 meters and less, but I've never had the time to try one out. Cheers, Jack. Okay, well, mate, that's a complete fallacy. I mean, the old man has a 30-30, and I remember him out at the range there when I was younger, you know, shooting a gong off the shoulder at 500 yards with one, and I kid you not, he definitely did that. To say that they're inaccurate, I mean, look, who knows? I don't know the brand or whatever people are talking about here, but the 30-30s that I've seen are very potent. The round is very potent. You know, people seem to love saying that they're only a 50-yard or a 100-yard gun. Like, and I just shake my head at that. You know, I'd hate to be standing, you know, 300 or 400 yards away and cop one of them in the chest. I tell you, like, you know, you'll drop any pig that you want in New South Wales with the 30-30. That's the end story, mate. I've seen it done numerous times. I've used the 30-30 as well. It is just an absolute fantastic caliber. There's heaps of guys in North Queensland with the really big pigs up there, and you know, they're using 30-30s all the time, and they are just doing the job time and time again. So you got to remember, mate, like, I will add this bit too. Like, you know, game hasn't suddenly become armoured over all these years. We've got better calibers, better projectiles, better propellants, all that sort of stuff. But game is not armoured. They've stayed the same the whole time. So, you know, for years, people have been using 30-30s to knock down, you know, large North American game. So the 30-30 will definitely do the job on pigs in New South Wales. Next question I got here is from Ian, and he says, I've got a good quality 223 I use for shooting foxes, rabbits and feral cats. I'm always interested in new calibers. Do you think a 204 Ruger would have much more to offer me? Thanks. Okay, this is something I have addressed before, mate. I did an interesting post there, I probably would have been a couple of years ago now, where we were talking about the 223 versus the 204 and what my fors and against were. Now, the big thing with 223 is you can load from like 40 grainers right up, you know, to like 75. Depending on your twist rate, you can go higher than that. But, you know, you've got a massive range of bullet weights that you can use there, mate. So, you know, if you're using, like, for example, you want to go out and you want to shoot rabbits or cats, then you can use those 40 grainers through the 223 and do the job. And let's be honest, like if you're shooting, you know, rabbits or cats, like what, absolute maximum, you're probably going to be maybe 150 yards away. And it's not going to make any difference having a 40 grain pill out of a 204 Ruger or a 40 grain pill out of a 223. Dead is dead, and there'll be no difference, you know, especially at that range there. Now, the 204 Ruger, depending on the bullet weight, does have a slightly better ballistic coefficient. So if you're comparing 40 grain 204 to a 40 grain 223, the 204 has that slight edge there. But honestly, practicality there, Ian, it's not going to be any different, mate. Like dead is dead. You're still going to be able to do the shot and knock out any of those game that you want to go after. The reason why I lean more to the 223 is availability. Not only that, it's a lot cheaper as well. I mean, you can get really good quality ammunition here in Australia, obviously made, you know, via Lithgow there. And, you know, it's under $1 a shot, where I don't know any 204 Ruger ammunition, well, factory ammo, obviously, that's under $1 a shot. So you're paying a lot more for it as well. And to be honest, mate, there's really no difference. And the advantage as well with 223 is if you do want to go after some pigs, or you want to go after some game that's a little bit heavier than your varmints, so to speak, then you can go up to that heavier pill, you know, 62, 64 grain, or you can go up to the 75 grain as well. So you've got a lot more variety there. Not to mention if you're out on a hunting trip and you're in the middle of nowhere, you run out of ammunition, you go into the local town to buy some ammunition, I pretty much guarantee you that they're going to have 223 ammunition on the shelf as opposed to 204 Ruger. So mate, that's my honest thoughts on it. I'd just stick to 223 myself. Next question I got here is from Steve, and he says, hey Ozzie, you mentioned in an earlier video about liking the Leupold VX-Freedom range of scopes. Which models in the range do you have fitted to your rimfire and centerfire rifles? Well, mate, I've only got ones actually in the VX-Freedom line to attached to my rimfires, and that's the VX-Freedom rimfire MOA 3 to 9x40 scope. So, you know, I got 5 of them now. I just bought another one, and look, I just love them. They work. The bullet drop compensators on it are perfect, you know, for what I want. I can't go past them. I cannot fault them. You know, for putting on a rimfire, they're well priced. You know, you're going to be looking at around about that $350 mark. I mean, it's made in the US. What more do you want? So that's why I love them. Next question I got here is from Edward, and he says, hi Ozzie, just wondering if it's okay to get a rifle barrel hot. I know there's a supposed reduction in accuracy, but does it do any damage to the barrel? Cheers. Yes, okay. As a rifle barrel gets hotter, Edward, you do risk and you will degrade the throat on it, okay? So throat erosion is an occurrence from the more rounds you put down range, and obviously if you let it get really hot, okay? So usually you see it in like AR systems, okay? So semi-auto, so say you got like an AR-15 and you're doing sustained rapid fire, well, it will erode that throat a lot quicker, okay, than if you just take slower, more precise shots with it. Very similar with a bolt action as well, okay? It doesn't really matter the action. It's about, you know, how many rounds you're putting down range. And I've always maintained that if you can grab that barrel and hang on to it, it's fine. If you grab that barrel and it is too hot to be able to hang on to, just let it cool for a few minutes, then go back to having a shoot from there, okay? I've always done that with my centerfire rifles, and I've never had any problem with, you know, degraded accuracy. Next question I got here is from Peter, and he says, G'day Ozzie, appreciate the work you do, mate. Not sure if this has been asked before, but was wondering if it'd be possible to do a beginner video on basic shooting fundamentals, along with any tips and tricks you found useful over the years. Cheers. Well, Pete, mate, I have been asked this a couple of times, and it's sort of, yeah, frustrates me a bit. Not the question, but it frustrates me because I'd like to have the spare time to run the coaching and hunting courses that I was actually doing down in South Australia there briefly. And I actually went into this sort of thing, exactly what you're asking for there. I just don't know if I could do it in a single video. It would just, there's too much to it. Perhaps I could just do a couple of basic tips, but basically when I was doing the training, you know, I was talking about hunting, you know, obviously choosing calibres, etc., but then hunting different game and how to hunt that different game, and then also different shooting stances and how to use your surrounding environment to your advantage, you know, to take accurate shots, etc. So yeah, mate, look, leave it with me. I'll have a think about it, and we'll just see what we can come up with. Okay guys, that concludes this month's Q&A. So once again, thanks very much to all of you who have submitted your questions. As I say, if you want some personalized advice and help, you know, with your shooting needs, or it could be knives or whatever, feel free to submit your questions via Patreon, or if you're a PayPal donator, then you can just simply email the question through, or, you know, send me a message via the Ozzie Reviews page or whatever, and we'll read it out for you if you wish. Like I say, we can just give you the advice privately, and there's no limit. You ask as many questions as you like. Okay guys, hope you enjoyed this month's Q&A. So till the next one, we'll see you then.